I'm sorry, but, ultimately, let's look at the two instances, break it down. The first one, he's singing a song. Now, the lyrics are in that song, whether we like it or not, whether it's a word any of us would use or not is immaterial. They're in the song. If he's singing the song, they're in there. Why would you want to live in a world where a person of colour can use the correct lyrics and a white person cannot, and ends up with not the ultimate sanction, but ends up with a very severe sanction and losing his job? That's just shocking. I can't believe that you would ever agree with that. Second of all, the other scenario where it was overheard, you don't know the context, as your WhatsApp message said earlier.
Yeah.
You don't know the context. It could have been relaying a story, could have been quoting someone, could have been anything. Okay, so ultimately, why wasn't that addressed at the time? You said it happened many years ago, but it's only come to the fore over the last since the most recent investigation. If that person that overheard it was so grossly offended by it, should have been mentioned there and then.
On that, Lee, I have to say I do agree with you. This is thought to have happened either in 2018 or 2019. No one can be quite sure, it would seem. And the person he was speaking to at the time, who was engaged in conversation with him where he apparently said the N-word, not during the song bit, but at a separate moment, he wasn't offended by it particularly, but someone overheard it and was. So I would agree with you. I think there is a lag there, isn't there?
Well, it's where are we going with this? As far as I'm concerned, you mentioned the word that's being reclaimed, right? And you're using it in a positive way. Let's say that. I would argue that if you look at most of the lyrics, most of the film dialogue that it's used in, it's generally used in a more negative than positive way. So ultimately, if you want people to not see colour and you want people to get along and race not to be there, like the racial divides not to be there, you have to treat everyone the same. People of colour can use these phrases, then white people should be able to as well, and vice versa.
So that it's being reclaimed means that it's being reclaimed by everyone, ultimately, Lee, regardless of the colour of your skin.
My point is that if you continue to reinforce racial divides, you're going to get continuous racial disharmony.
All right.
I think the point here is generally words matter, and the people that say those words matter, which unfortunately Diane Abbott has a tendency to put her foot in her mouth when she utters most words, and it's unfortunate she does that. But I think it is offensive to use the N-word, as you quite rightly pointed out, and it's important as to who says those words. And if there is clear evidence that unfortunately John Torode did put his foot in his mouth, well, unfortunately, there are always consequences to everything we do in the heaven knows, everyone picks up everybody else. But to give you were talking about TV programmes earlier, one of your favourites. There's a gentleman called Larry David who has a show called Curb Your Enthusiasm in the States. And in that programme, he takes a cynical comedic stab at the N-word, where he gets his black lodger to call him his white N-word. And he reverses the whole impact of what is and what is not acceptable. So it's a bit like, this is my territory. I can say my fellow man is whatever my fellow man is if I'm from that race or religion, but another individual is not able to say that. And I just want to pick up on one other point, and I'm sorry to say this. I've enjoyed all your programmes, and I've enjoyed all your callers, certainly this morning, with the exception of one individual, and that is your first interaction with Sammy Nylander. I've heard this chap before, and unfortunately, he's very good in whataboutery. If you were asking him about a particular subject, he will always bring the agenda back to what he wants to speak about, and I applaud you for picking him up.
Oh, well, that's very kind, Dave. I mean, he come on the radio and he can speak like anybody, like your good self. And I appreciate you doing so. Thank you very much indeed. So are we saying that there are just some words that cannot be said by some individuals because of the historical context of that word, even if the movement is to try and readjust the historical context of that word and reclaim it? You can't ignore the historical context of that word.
Yeah, Tom, you're exactly right. If it's been reclaimed, you can't say it. One of your not the last caller, second to last, I think.
Yes.
The one that said it's okay to use the N-word
daughter,
and so on and so forth. It's not. No, not the daughter. The one just before that.
Yes, John, yeah.
Yeah, it's not okay. There's people in the LGBTQI plus community that have reclaimed words that they were used against them probably in the late 70s, early 80s. That was a horrible word, but they've reclaimed it and used it amongst themselves. I think it's disgusting to hear that someone says, "What's the big deal? What's the big fuss?" I'm not as articulate as some of your listeners. Actually, I've been listening to LBC when it was London's biggest conversation 30 years ago. So it's been about 25 years since I last called up, and I'm infuriated at home while I'm off waiting for my grandson to wake up to take him to nursery, and I have to now call you to say, please, 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 as a black man living in the UK, born in London Borough of Greenwich, I am respectful to all and everybody. And if there was a song that was disparaging or heinous towards a group or a community of people, I wouldn't be singing that song on the way to work on Tube.
I get it. But if a black man writes a song in which it contains the N-word, listened to by the ears of white people, if a white person repeated that song lyric, including that N-word, would that be wrong? That would be not allowed?
Yes, because I watch it on social media constantly with girls and guys singing the songs, and then they stop singing that part. They respectfully say, that's not something that I can use, so I stop singing it. I see it constantly on social media.
So we do have, rightly or wrongly, we do have some words that cannot be used by people of a certain skin colour or people of that it is they can't use them, but that it is socially unacceptable for a person of a particular skin colour to say a particular word, as it might be for a person who isn't gay to say a particular word used by gay people.
Right.
That's okay, is it? We agree that that's fine.
Well, yeah, because at the end of the day, if there's a word, so for instance, being part of the LGBTQI plus community back in the 80s, people used to use specific words to belittle you or to be nasty.
Well, queer. We can use the word queer. We can say the word queer. Queer would be one of those words, right?
Right, for instance. So that word is then reclaimed by that community, and they use it amongst themselves.
I'm not in the LGBTQI plus community. Can I use that? I'm allowed to use that word, though, aren't I?
Yes, because we've changed the narrative of that word. That word's no longer a slur.
And the N-word, has the reality of that word changed?
However, there are people in their kitchen, around their kitchen tables, that do still use that word as a slur.
Yes, there are, which is part of the reason for reclaiming it, I guess.
Basically, these rappers, they don't represent me as a black person. They're allowed to spout these lyrics. They're allowed to distribute these by the music moguls alike, but they're not allowed to produce political records or records that maybe condescending to white people in any way. And that's where I think the main problem lies, where it's been distributed and basically paraded. And for argument's sake, the gentleman before me whose daughter was singing the lyrics, she's singing the lyrics to a song. Yeah. But it was produced by Kanye West.
Yeah.
And distributed by the music moguls. So that's where the problem lies. The problem lies with the distribution of these records. They shouldn't be distributed in the first place.
So, and they shouldn't be distributed in the first place because it contains the N-word?
100%.
So Kanye West shouldn't be using the N-word?
Well, should Kanye West decide to use the N-word, if I decide to use the N-word, that's my decision. But to distribute a record using the N-word, I think that's totally wrong. So I think that's where the problem's lie.
It's the wide dissemination of the use of that word that you find problematic, Mark, as a black man.
Well, I find the word problematic. Period.
Yeah.
No matter who's saying it, black or white.
What then is your view of the sort of the quotes reclaiming of that word?
I don't believe in that at all. I'm sorry. Right. I really don't.
So you can never remove the context, the historical context of that word from it. It will always be associated, however hard people try to disassociate it.
I think it's the same as if you, for argument's sake, look at Judaism, and if you look at, for argument's sake, the Germans. If I turned around and said, the cooker on, for argument's sake, I don't want to repeat that what I would like to say. I think it's the same context. You can't use it in the same context. You can't distribute that and you can't say it.
I'm not sure about that example, but I take your point.
I think if this is used in the context of a song and a non-black or person of colour used it, I actually don't think I am offended by that. At the end of the day, the music's been put out publicly and it's there for everybody to sing it. I think if the context of the term is used outside of that, and if any of my non-black or people of colour friends or colleagues said that to me, I would feel offended because it's a different arena. So I'm.
If they sing it at you from a song that you're going to karaoke one night, and that comes on for some reason, they've got the explicit version on, and your white colleague sings it, you're okay with it?
I am okay with it because it's out in the public domain. It's for people to sing. It's music. It's been put out. People are making money off it. But I think when you take that out and somebody uses it in another way, that's when I have to question. And it has happened to me before.
I'm sure, unfortunately.